Okay, looks like we're set up. So, this is a little bit different, a little bit more dramatic or intentional, and that's because I have actually been doing something like this for at least the past 6 or 7 years. Is that the night before my birthday, I'll actually have a conversation with myself, talk about what I've learned, talk about things that I want to remember, what I'm going through, what I'm thinking, a little bit raw, a little bit unscripted. I mean, I do have a simple couple notes of things because I wanted to think through this past year and what's happened since I turned 30 last year, which was a big birthday. It's a big transition to a new decade. You know, we want those things to be exciting and memorable, and it was. I mean, that time of birthday, that time in last August was a huge transition. We had just moved from Chicago down to a small town in Georgia where we are now. We're in Thomasville, Georgia, here right north of the Florida Panhandle, to a new place, new city, new effort, new job, and I just never could have expected what this year would have brought. And that sounds super stereotypical and super like kind of almost lazy of me to say, but 30 to 31 has not been as dramatic, I guess, as 29 to 30, at least even mentally. But I would say what's made up for that is how dramatic it actually has been. You know, just the number itself isn't a big deal, going from 30 to 31, but this year has been so jam-packed with new experiences and new challenges and new lessons that I'm incredibly grateful for, and will set a trajectory, I believe, for the rest of my career, the rest of my life, with my family. I mean, it really has changed things, and for the better. And that doesn't mean everything was great. I mean, this has been one of the hardest years of my life, but I'm so thankful for it. And there's a lot more clarity after this year to everything else in life. So going back to the handy dandy notepad here, just make sure. So let's think kind of like highlight reel, like what's some of the worst, I guess one of the hardest seasons of this past year was actually, I wrote down the holiday season going all the way from November. November was really great. We got to go to North Carolina, see some extended family on my side. And when we came back, we realized how emotional it was to be in such a new place. And I mean, as many great people as there are here, it's different. And it ends up being lonely because everything is new. So it was really hard. I actually went through another season of depression personally through the holidays, through December into early through mid-January. Really not productive. I mean, I would say December was so many things happening. I mean, amazing things at the church organization that I worked for here in Thomasville. Amazing happened. Just new relationships with people, meeting new people, but just personally inside, it was incredibly, incredibly dark. And my mental health was at an all-time low, and it was just really hard and lonely and emotional. And I didn't know how to cope with that. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was still figuring that out. As far as the highlight, I would say back up a couple months. I mean, of course I've got to mention too, because I'm going to put myself in that situation because this is my video. Yeah. Anyway, so in October I got to go to Atlanta to go to a gathering of church leaders and other nonprofit leaders, business leaders even, and within the network of churches that I was working for, got to connect with some of those guys and ladies. And it was just those people. It was amazing. It was eye-opening. It was life-changing. It was informative. I mean, I have some great friends that I made there, literally across the globe now. If I show up in England or South Africa, or if I'm going out to California, which is practically a different country now. Love you. I love you people in California. Australia, shout out to my buddy Jonathan out there on the Sunshine Coast. It's been amazing to kind of see what's come of that. I got to meet someone who I've looked up to for a long time, and not to go into all that and distract from it, but just that made an impact. And also, just this past June, just a couple months ago, I had a really great vacation and just reconnecting time with my own family. And we got to go to Orlando, Florida, and that was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed that. So a couple things I've learned is that actually travel is actually exhausting now at this age. I mean, finally, I've hit that point where I wouldn't say traveling is as refreshing as it used to be and exciting and exhilarating, but it's amazing, and I want to keep doing it. I just recognize that it's really a lot. Whether you have the family or not, it's a lot. So I find myself being more comfortable with staying home than I've ever been, which is a really scary transition to make. If you know me from the past, I hated the idea of just being stuck somewhere. So paying professionals to do things is absolutely worth it. Self-discipline is a critical trait for any functioning millennial or any functioning adult moving into the future. So just note that. I'm working on that. I've never really cared that much about my personal health, and I think that's something that I'm really learning and embracing now, is just on every level. I consider there's three main areas for me in my health. There's my physical health, which is my body, and it's tied into it, but I consider my mental health something different. Even though they're connected, my mental health is something I have to be proactive about, as well as my spiritual health, because I believe that I am a created being, and regardless of your beliefs or religion or not, that there is something more than just what we see and what we experience. It's not just not everything in life can be observed through a telescope or microscope or be measured. And so, since there's more, I look to faith. I am a man of faith, so I have not cared well for my spiritual health as well as my other areas of health. And I've taken that for granted being young, and I think that's a common trait, but I was an athlete in high school and in college, and so I just never really, I completely recognize the privilege I had growing up, and I'm thankful for it, and I'm so glad that I'm more aware of it now than ever, and just seeing that I can be thankful for, I guess, sort of a protection, but also now recognizing it, I can leverage it for others, and I'm excited and so willing to do that, and I'm thankful for the opportunities I've had to do that this past year, more than ever. I have learned, and on that same note, about just privilege and racism and these subjects that have come out, and in dealing with distance and communication, and just how a pandemic affects our world and affects our health and all those things. It's been incredibly eye-opening. I learned how to live stream, how to upkeep a Wix website. Not getting paid, not sponsored, just saying. Shout out, call me if you need some help. So my consulting fee starts, well, we'll talk about that later. Just email me. I learned about, really, I think one of the deepest takeaways, I guess, if we're going to go back to internal sort of lessons, not things that happened, but like things that I took away, is I learned how much that I really don't consider myself in anything. And I realized this is kind of a dysfunction, because I was really never modeled, never told, never really helped in the area of what self-care looked like, and how that could affect other people. Because there is a very, very clear difference between humility, which I strive for, right? Like putting self aside and caring for others, okay? That's a very, very, that's a value that I care deeply about. There's a difference between humility and self-neglect. And maybe you've struggled with that. I've struggled with that. I've neglected myself to such a degree at times that I have hurt others. And out of some sort of noble, misguided sort of mentality and perspective, I've thought humility meant self-neglect and never asking myself the question such as, what do I want? or what is best for me, and turning that toward myself. And that has actually been hurtful to others. Others that I've worked for, others that I've worked with, others that I've led, my own personal family. People that don't even know me have been impacted by that. I know that's hard to say, but I mean, think about the influence. People don't realize the influence they have beyond people that you just don't even realize who's looking at you, or the ripple effects their lives have on others. And so I'm realizing more of that. I'm embracing more of that. I feel permission to look within, permission that I've never felt before. Part of this is just growing up, and I feel it's weird because I have logged a lot of life experiences, a lot of moments, a lot of checkpoints, a lot of goals that I've even had, I've achieved. And I'm incredibly grateful that I've had the opportunity to do a lot of that before 30, and then as I've turned 30, so that now I feel that I really truly have this really vast experience that I can draw from as I make decisions for the future, as I plan, as things have changed that I'll get into later. I guess sharing now is as appropriate as ever that I'm unemployed, at this point, and I'm not in the position I was a year ago as far as even just in my job, my career, and thinking where this would go, and being in the nonprofit sector, right, helping out church organizations and ministries. And I love the church, if you will, and I say love because it's a love-hate relationship. I care about it, and I see its dysfunction as an area that I could actually help. And I've realized I've had to humble myself in that area and say, hey, there's areas that I can't. I'm not capable of helping. And I think there are other areas that I haven't ever been aware of that I am capable of helping. And it's best at this season that the areas that I can help the most would actually call on me to not be the point leader of the organization. Like, they're just impossible. They do not sync. They don't mix, and they can't run parallel. And so I have had my eyes opened, and while it's been some pain, it's also been a relief, and it's also been something that we're walking through. And really, I say we as in my wife and I, and along with the leadership of the church that I worked at. I mean, we're still in support of it. We're still here. We're still supporting. We're still attending. I mean, now that the things have kind of let up, the church, kind of held off for a long time, not going to services, but we've been able to social distance and gather together, which has been very refreshing. It's been great for my girls, to be back with some of their friends and their teachers, and just be able to be a part of that, be a part of community is really what it's come down to. And we've missed that, and it's been good, and we are still in support, and it's best for everybody that I'm not a part of that as far as being the leader. And that's hard to say, and it was hard to accept, but it's the truth, and I'm more okay than ever before just accepting that for what it is, and not having to explain that to anybody. I mean, if I'm being honest, I'm okay with not explaining this or having to defend myself, because I, maybe like you, maybe not, I tend to defend myself when it's unnecessary or unprompted, and that's kind of dead in me now. I'm not really doing that anymore. So I've reflected a lot on that, and I've got a lot of ideas. I've started creating again, which is a good sign. I guess that for me, if I'm mentally healthy, if I've kind of been searching, if I've been growing, if I'm inspired, if I'm not as stressed and feeling kind of repressed and pushed down, that's when I get the most creative. And I haven't felt creative in a really long time. Part of that's with the pandemic, but some of that is just simply all that's been going on. And I feel like I'm in a space where I can actually say, hey, and my faith is a part of that. I feel like that's a part of my creativity. And maybe that is for you too, and maybe it's not. Maybe you kind of be like, how would that actually work together? But for me, they actually blend together. And for you who are Christians or religious who are watching this, I think you might say, oh, that I didn't realize that they would actually come together. But for me, it's a huge inspiration, you know. And so is my family, so is my life experience, so is nature. I mean, I can go on for days about. I just love space. It's one of those things. So anyway, I'm considering a lot, working on a lot personally. You'll be seeing a little bit more from me than usual, and this has been a really hard, really productive, really healthy year for me, for my family. I've got a third baby on the way that's going to be coming here in November, just in a few months, and that is a new experience out of my comfort zone. So we're gonna have 3 children soon, as you saw in yesterday's video, or if you're just seeing this by itself, I got another car recently, so there's been a lot of projects happening, which is good, and I've been making a lot of things, and that is part of creativity, that's part of creation, and that's therapeutic for me, and that's part of why you're seeing this too, that I'm actually sharing it, because I've done this, like I said, for the past few years, and I'm going to keep this under 20 minutes because it's going to be a super long video. So if you're still here, thank you. If you're not liking and subscribing and you've made it to this point, I'm very appreciative of you, and I'm also surprised. So I hope that these are always rambling to a degree, but I hope that's been helpful. That's just where I'm at, thinking about a lot. I'll share more in the future. This isn't a catch-all, but that's just reflection from this year, and I'm thankful for it. So I'm actually going to go. It's the night before my birthday, so my wife went and got some sushi. The kids are in bed. We're going to watch Ford versus Ferrari, which I haven't seen yet. I'm a car guy. I'm really excited to have a stay-at-home date night with my wife. So I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for listening. See you soon.